Have you ever stood in awe of a woman, sensing her strength, but wondering what truly moves her behind that confident smile? What if the very things that make her seem untouchable are the same things that make her most vulnerable? And what if, without knowing it, you've held the power to either heal her or unknowingly wound her? These are not just poetic questions. They touch the core of something most men never realize until it's too late. Today, we're diving deep into something rarely talked about, yet deeply transformative: the 7 hidden female weaknesses every man must understand, drawn from the ancient wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and the principles of Stoic philosophy. Now, take a moment with me. Picture a man who ruled an empire, who led armies with steel and strategy, but who, in the quiet of his own thoughts, questioned the nature of love, desire, weakness, and strength. That man was Marcus Aurelius, and the words he wrote in his private journals, they were not just about power or duty, they were about the human condition, including the fragile, often unseen sides of the feminine heart. So, before we jump into the list, let's build the stage together. Imagine Rome nearly 2,000 years ago. A Stoic emperor gazing out over marble courtyards, wrestling not with enemies, but with emotions, with longing, with the invisible battles that live within all of us, especially those that shape the heart of a woman. Let's begin with the first truth. The truth so subtle, most men overlook it. Her heart craves validation, even when she looks like she needs nothing at all. Have you ever noticed her from across the room? The woman who seems to have it all together. The laughter, the poise, the confident eyes that scan the room like she owns it. Her phone keeps buzzing. Her friends lean in closer. And everything about her says, "I'm good. I've got this." And maybe in that moment, you tell yourself she doesn't need anyone. Not even me. But let me take you beyond what you see. Because this isn't just a theory, it's personal. Years ago, I fell for a woman named Sarah. She wasn't just physically beautiful, though yes, heads turned when she entered a room. She had a presence, a kind of grace that made people pay attention without her even trying. When she walked into a cafe, you could feel the air shift. And like so many others, I was quietly captivated. I remember thinking, she's so secure, so complete. She doesn't need praise or reassurance from anyone. But then, one quiet evening over coffee, something changed. She leaned in, looked down for a moment, and what she said next, I'll never forget. What she revealed in that moment shattered every assumption I had about her strength and opened my eyes to what so many women hide behind their strength. Let's continue. She looked at me, almost whispering, "Do you think I'm enough?" That single question pulled me out of my assumptions like a lightning strike. This woman, so poised, so magnetic, was quietly wondering if she was truly worthy. It shook me. How could someone who seemed so complete question her own value? But that's the hidden truth we rarely see. Beneath even the strongest woman's smile, beneath the laughter that lights up a room, there's often an unspoken question she carries. Am I enough? Am I truly seen? Am I really chosen? Have you ever loved someone like that? Someone who appeared untouchable to the world, strong, decisive, admired by many, yet in your private moments together, she slowly let down her guard. She allowed you to glimpse the softer, more fragile parts of her. And in that sacred space, you realize something important. Her strength wasn't the absence of vulnerability, it lived alongside it. And when a woman like that seeks validation, it's not from every man. It's from you, the one she quietly respects, the one whose opinion can build or break her, not because she's weak, but because you matter to her. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, didn't write love letters for the world to read. But in his timeless wisdom, he left us this truth. The opinion of others will only matter if you choose to value it. Profound. Sarah didn't crave admiration from the crowd. She didn't need applause from strangers. She needed something far more. Rare. She needed it from me. From someone whose words weren't tossed around casually. From someone whose gaze saw through the surface and met her soul. And here's where many men, including myself back then, get it all wrong. We think we're helping by giving compliments. We rush to reassure. We flood her with praise. But when validation is handed out too quickly too often, it starts to lose its meaning. It blends into the background, like music that's always playing but never heard. If only I had remembered what Marcus might have advised. Hold your praise like a rare coin. Give it with intention, not to play games, but because its true value comes from being earned. When you recognize her strength and her softness, when you acknowledge not just her beauty, but her bravery, her quiet fears, her subtle needs, and then you say, I see you, the real you. That's when your words don't just reach her ears. They reach her heart. So let me ask you, have you ever loved someone who acted like she didn't need anyone, yet silently longed for just one honest voice to say she matters? Do you remember her eyes the moment your words finally felt real, not performative flattery, but pure truth? That moment, my friend, that's the turning point, where love is no longer a performance, but becomes presence. And presence, when practiced with wisdom, leads us to the next truth, a deeper layer of the female heart that most men never notice until it's already slipping away. Let's keep going. Earlier, we uncovered a hidden truth, how the simple act of truly seeing a woman can anchor her emotionally, without costing you your own sense of self. When done right, it's not manipulation, it's connection. And that, as Marcus Aurelius might phrase it, is the quiet strength that builds trust from authenticity, not control. But connection isn't always smooth. Sometimes, even when you're doing everything right, you find yourself caught in a storm you didn't expect that. So let me ask you, have you ever been startled by how quickly her emotions changed? One moment, she's laughing at a light joke you made, her smile bright and her energy radiant. Then without warning, her eyes narrow, her tone shifts, and suddenly it feels like you've triggered something deep. As if you've stepped into a storm with no warning signs. Let me share a story that might echo something you've lived. Years ago, I was deeply involved with a woman named Lena. She had a fire about her, warm, electric, the kind of presence that made every room feel brighter. Being around her felt like standing near a crackling fireplace on a winter night, inviting and alive. But there was another side to Lena, one I didn't quite understand at first. One night we went out for dinner. Everything was perfect. Soft clinking of glasses, gentle candlelight flickering on her face, music humming quietly in the background. It felt like a scene from a romance film. Then, without any sign, her mood shifted. Her smile faded. Her eyes dropped to her plate. I leaned in and gently asked, "What's wrong?" She offered a tight smile and shook her head. But I could feel that something had shifted. A few minutes passed. Then, in a voice heavy with emotion, she asked, "Why did you sound so cold when you picked up the phone earlier? Was someone else calling you?" I was stunned. To me, it was just a quick call, nothing special, nothing suspicious. But to her, it felt different. That brief moment had created doubt, a small ripple that grew into a wave. What I saw as insignificant, she experienced as a threat to the emotional safety she had with me. Have you ever found yourself in that place? Watching someone you care about spiral into hurt over something you never meant to cause? Feeling helpless, like you're reaching out to someone who's drifting away in a tide of emotion too strong to fight? That's when I turned back to the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. His words echoed through time. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Lena's emotional intensity wasn't weakness, not in the way many men might think. It was deeply human. Her feelings weren't irrational. They were real, raw responses to uncertainty, and in that moment, I realized something important, not just about her, but about myself. Because once you understand that emotional waves aren't meant to be resisted, but navigated, you unlock a new kind of power, the power to lead with calm. And that brings us to the next truth. Previously, we explored how emotional storms don't mean a woman is broken. They mean she's human. And in those turbulent moments, your calm presence can do more than any words. It becomes the anchor in her emotional sea. Because when she's overwhelmed by chaos inside, your ability to remain steady and unshaken is what might save not just her, but both of you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Stand firm as a rock against which the waves continually break." Let that image sink in. Waves wild, crashing, relentless, smashing over a stone that does not move. The rock doesn't shout back, it doesn't panic. It doesn't try to control the sea. It simply remains strong, still, present. That's what Lena needed from me. Not solutions, not debates, not explanations, just stillness, just quiet strength. Back then, neither of us could name it. But it was clear she didn't need me to panic when her emotions surged. She didn't need me to push back or match her intensity. What she needed was someone who could listen with patience, hold space without judgment, and remain grounded so she could find her way back to calm. Have you ever tried to fix her feelings by arguing, by talking sense, by debating her emotions, only to see her get more hurt, more distant? And then, have you ever just sat beside her, held her hand, let the silence speak for you, and slowly watched her breathe again? That's what Marcus meant. When the woman you love is swept away by her emotions, your role isn't to rescue her from them. It's to be the steady presence that reminds her who she is, even when she forgets. Because her true weakness isn't that she feels deeply. Her emotion is part of her brilliance, what makes her passionate, expressive, alive. Her weakness only emerges when those emotions go unchecked. When they lead her thoughts, her decisions, her peace without any pause for reflection. And that's where you come in. Your calm isn't cold. Your stillness isn't indifference. It's love in its most powerful, wordless form. A presence that holds steady, so she doesn't have to be strong all the time. But there's another hidden truth I discovered, and it may surprise you, even. The most independent woman, the one who says she doesn't need anyone, may still carry a quiet fear of being alone. Let me take you into a story that revealed this to me in a way I never expected. Her name was Amalda. She was radiant, magnetic, driven. Her career was soaring. She had friends in every corner of the city, and a social life that ran faster than most people could keep up with. On the surface, she seemed unshakable. The first time we talked, she told me clearly, "I'm not the type of woman who needs a man to complete me." And you know what? I believed her. Everything about her lifestyle backed it up. But as time passed, as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I began to notice something. Little cracks, barely visible, started to show. What I saw in those cracks taught me something profound about strength, loneliness, and the kind of love we rarely talk about. Let's keep going. Earlier, I shared how Amel's bold independence masked something deeper and more vulnerable. And it was in the quiet moments, not the loud ones, that I started to see what lay beneath the surface. One evening, after a long day, we found ourselves sitting on her balcony, the city lights blinking below like distant stars. Our conversation wandered from work deadlines to childhood memories until, slowly, it faded into silence. She took a deep, quiet breath. Then, almost like she was confessing to the night sky, she said something I'll never forget. "I hate going home to an empty apartment. Sometimes I stay out just to avoid it." I remember being stunned. This woman, so composed, so in control, who seemed to glide through life without ever missing a beat, was secretly at war with the stillness of solitude. Behind her laughter and late-night confidence lived a shadow, one she rarely let anyone see. Have you ever noticed that contradiction in someone? That fierce independence, that "I've got this" energy paired with a quiet, unspoken fear of being truly alone? It reminded me of something Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations. "Do not hanker after what you do not have. Instead, fix your attention on the finest and best that you have." But for Amal, the finest thing she longed for wasn't recognition, or crowds, or applause. It was something far more intimate, a soul who would see her and keep choosing her, even in silence. Her independence, that was her armor, her power. But underneath it, she harbored a fear that maybe, just maybe, if she stopped moving, she might find something unlovable inside the silence. So she filled her calendar. She talked, laughed, stayed busy. Because in stillness, the fear crept in. That's when I remembered another line from Marcus: "Guard your intentions." And as a man, this is where your awareness becomes crucial, not just to recognize her fear, but to not feed it. Because the line between being a comforting presence and becoming an emotional escape is thin, dangerously thin. I had to learn this lesson the slow way. Instead of filling every quiet pause with words or reassurances, I started doing something different. I stayed, just stayed, beside her, in silence, no fixing, no performing, just being there. At first, she fidgeted, checked her phone, shifted in her seat, tried to find something to say. But over time, something changed. She began to settle. Her breathing slowed. She didn't need to talk. She didn't need to impress. She started to realize that loneliness and stillness aren't the same. That silence doesn't always have to be a void. It can also be a refuge. And have you ever seen that transformation in someone? That moment when she realizes she doesn't have to perform to be loved? That's the quiet power Marcus hinted at, not to erase her fear, but to help her see she was never truly alone. Because even the strongest, most self-reliant woman still carries a shadow of loneliness within her. And if you can understand that shadow, not fear it, you'll be ready to uncover the next layer of her heart. A truth most never notice, but one that changes everything. Let's continue. When you truly understand a woman's fear, not to control it, but to honor it, you become more than just someone she desires when things are good. You become someone she trusts when things go dark. And that kind of trust is rarer than love itself. Now, let's talk about something that often confuses even the most grounded men: her attraction to status over character. Have you ever found yourself asking, why would a wise, kind, thoughtful woman be drawn to a man who seems shallow, who lacks real character, but carries an air of power and status? Let me take you back to a moment that opened my eyes. Her name was Rana. She was one of the most graceful people I'd ever met. Educated, well-read, and with a warmth that made strangers feel like old friends. There was something about the way she listened, truly listened, that made you feel seen in a world that often doesn't notice that from the start. It felt like we shared something rare. We talked deep into the night about philosophy, laughed over little things most people overlook, and found comfort in silences that didn't feel awkward. They felt sacred. For a while, I believed with all my heart that what mattered most to her was character. Then he showed up, a man who seemed to carry the room with him wherever he went. His watch sparkled like it had been placed there to catch the light on purpose. His words were confident, polished with mentions of luxury destinations and powerful names. His smile carried mystery, and his stance radiated dominance. To me, he looked like someone who had built a life from appearances, not depth. To her, he looked like gravity. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself it was nothing. But soon, I saw the shift. Her replies to my texts took longer. Her laughter, once so bright and spontaneous, became more restrained. Her eyes, once so present with me, began to drift to somewhere else. It stung, not just because I had feelings for her, but because I truly believed, maybe naively, that character would always outweigh status in the heart of a woman who valued depth. Have you ever felt that quiet ache? The one where you realize that even the most genuine, emotionally intelligent woman isn't immune to the pull of power. That moment changed me. And then I remembered something Marcus Aurelius once wrote. How ridiculous and how strange to be surprised at anything which happens in life. Those words brought me back down to earth. Because the truth is, status itself isn't the villain. It's not evil. It's a form of attraction that's been wired into us since the beginning of civilization. Long before social media, long before designer brands, women have been drawn naturally to the man who could provide, protect, lead, the one whose presence implied safety, whose name suggested strength. It wasn't about vanity. It was about survival. But here's where the real weakness begins to show. Sometimes, the symbol of strength blinds her to the absence of substance beneath it. She may begin to confuse charm for character, confidence for wisdom, dominance for depth. And when that happens, when image begins to outweigh integrity, it opens the door to a deeper kind of disconnection, one that even she may not see coming. Let's continue. Previously, we explored how the pull of status can overshadow substance, and how your strength lies not in resenting that pull, but in rising above it through quiet character. Because when confidence is mistaken for virtue, and reputation is confused with reality, even the wisest hearts can be misled. But as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That line changed something in me. Instead of resenting Rana's attraction to status symbols, I chose a different path. I chose to become the kind of man whose presence created its own gravity, not by flaunting things I couldn't afford, but by embodying what status can never purchase. Calm when things fell apart. Honesty, even in the smallest moments. Loyalty, especially when no one was watching. And slowly, something shifted. I saw her eyes return to me. Not because I had more, but because what I offered had depth, not decoration. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt that temptation to show off? To flash something impressive, hoping to hold her attention? Or have you ever taken the harder road, the quieter road, and trusted that your steady, grounded nature would eventually speak louder. Even if it spoke more slowly, yes, status might open the door. But it's character that decides who stays, and that truth? It's not new. Marcus Aurelius lived it, walking through the marble halls of Rome, surrounded by power, but choosing purpose. So, remember, her weakness isn't that she notices status. That instinct has been around for centuries. Her real weakness is forgetting to look beneath it. And your role isn't to judge her, it's to become the kind of man whose quiet presence says everything that glitter cannot. Here stands substance, not just shine. But there's another weakness, one that doesn't wear expensive watches or whisper promises of power. It lives in the mind. It hides in the moments she can't sit still with the present, because she's always racing into the future. Have you ever loved someone like that? Someone whose thoughts seem to live 3 steps ahead, constantly worrying about what could go wrong, or dreaming about what might come. A woman so caught up in the future that she rarely paused to feel the moment with you. That's what I learned from a man. She was gentle, thoughtful, and her eyes always looked like they were scanning the horizon, as if chasing something only she could see. When we were together, our conversations often drifted to questions that hadn't even happened yet. What if you stop loving me? What if my job changes? What if we move to another city, get married, have children? And what if it all goes wrong? Sometimes she'd dream beautiful things, castles in the clouds, vacations we hadn't booked, celebrations we hadn't planned, always somewhere in the future. And it was in those moments, between her fears and fantasies, that I began to understand what Marcus meant when he said, confine yourself to the present. Let's explore that deeper in the last part. We saw how Amina's heart often lived in the future, caught between dreams of perfection and fears of loss. And while her visions were beautiful, they slowly began to rob us of something even more precious, the present. She would speak of vacations we hadn't planned, homes we hadn't built, versions of ourselves we hadn't yet become. At first, it was endearing. Her imagination was sweet. Her fears felt genuine. Her hope was pure. But little by little, I began to see how those imagined tomorrows were quietly stealing from today. The very moments we were living here, now were slipping through her fingers like sand. One evening we sat together under a quiet, fading sunset. The sky was glowing in soft shades of orange and pink. The world felt still. I reached for her hand and said gently, look around, just for a second. Right now, it's just us. No past regrets, no future what-ifs. Just this. But her eyes clouded again. Her thoughts had already wandered. Her mind was racing toward questions even she couldn't answer. Have you ever been there? Sitting beside someone who physically shares the space with you, but whose heart is either 2 steps ahead in worry, or 2 steps behind in memory, never quite beside you. That's when I remembered a line Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, one he repeated often. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason that today arm you against the present. Amina's weakness wasn't that she loved too little. It was that she loved so deeply, she became trapped in endless loops of what if. What if things fall apart? What if something goes wrong? Or even what if it all becomes too perfect and slips away? Her mind swung between the fear of pain and the hope for perfection. And both of those ironically stole the peace that was already in front of her. As men, our instinct is often to fix, to comfort, to promise. We want to erase her fears by painting the perfect picture of what could be. But Marcus reminded me, The future isn't ours to give. What we can offer is presence. So I stopped trying to build castles in the sky. I stopped making impossible promises. Instead, I did something smaller but much more powerful. I stayed. I listened. I breathed with her. We sat in silence. We noticed the breeze rustling the trees, the soft warmth of her hand in mine. And slowly, I felt her heartbeat settle as if she was learning to stop running through a storm of imagined tomorrows. Have you ever felt that shift? That moment when the person you love stops looking past you and finally sees you fully, clearly, now? That is the quiet power of presence. Her weakness isn't in how deeply she loves. It's in letting tomorrow steal today. And your strength? It's not in being able to predict the future. It's in making the present feel so real, so grounded, so safe, that she finally stops needing to run. Marcus Aurelius understood this centuries ago. Confine yourself to the present. Because real love, true connection, can only ever be lived in this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is help her remember that. But there's still one more truth, one final weakness hidden in plain sight that often gets overlooked. And yet, it may be the most revealing of them all. Let's continue. In the last scene, we explored how the gift of presence, of truly living in the now, can calm the anxious mind that constantly leaps into the future. But there's another kind of inner storm many women face. One that doesn't come from tomorrow's fears, but from today's silent judgments. Let's talk about a sixth kind of weakness, one so quiet and hidden that most men never notice it until they see it in her eyes. Overthinking what others might think. Have you ever watched the woman you love getting ready in the morning? Not just choosing what to wear, but carefully, anxiously, checking her reflection over and over again, as if she could already hear the invisible chorus of whispers waiting out in the world. Let me tell you about Miriam. She was smart, quick-witted, the kind of woman who could light up a room without saying a single word. She had this spark opinions that cut like truth, and dreams so bold they could barely fit on the pages she tried to write them on. But underneath that shine was a battle she never spoke of. I started to notice it during simple things. When we were going out together, she'd try on outfit after outfit, pausing in front of the mirror with this quiet tension in her shoulders. And the questions she asked weren't really questions. Is this too much or too plain? What do you think they'll think? I'd always tell her the truth. You look perfect. But it never seemed to reach her, because the truth is, she wasn't dressing for me. And she wasn't even dressing for herself. She was dressing for them. The vague, faceless they, the people out there who might judge, might admire, might comment, or worse, silently criticize. People she might never meet. Words she might never hear, but would still feel. Have you ever loved someone like that? Someone whose voice is strong, but still gets drowned out by the imagined noise of 1,000 others? Whose self-worth is always battling with the fear of being misjudged? That's when I stumbled upon a line from Marcus Aurelius that finally gave shape to what I'd witnessed in Miriam, and maybe, if I'm honest, what I've sometimes seen in myself. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, yet care more about their opinion than our own. The moment I read it, I thought of her. And then one night, that moment came to life. Miriam had spent hours tweaking a post for social media, writing, rewriting, polishing it to perfection. And in the end, she deleted it. Not because she didn't like it, but because she was afraid of what strangers might say, strangers who didn't know her. who didn't matter, but who still held power over her choices. She looked at me, eyes tired, heart heavy, and asked, almost in defeat, "Why do I care so much?" In that moment, I didn't give her a lecture. I didn't tell her, "You shouldn't care." Instead, I remembered Marcus's deeper wisdom: show by example, not by words. So I did something simple. I posted something of my own, raw, real, unedited. I didn't polish it. I didn't wait for approval. I just let it be as it was. And when she saw that I was still standing, still unbothered, still myself, something shifted in her. Because sometimes the strongest message isn't spoken, it's lived. And what happened next taught us both something even deeper. Let's keep going. In the last moment, we saw how a small act, one that came from authenticity rather than performance, sparked something quiet but powerful in Miriam. She saw that even without approval, without applause, I was still standing, still whole, still enough. And in her eyes, I noticed something shift. Have you ever done that? Not told her, but shown her that the world doesn't stop turning just because someone else stays silent? That your life doesn't collapse when others withhold approval? Her weakness isn't vanity. It's not about ego. It's the weight of a world that constantly tells her she must earn her worth through appearance, through performance, through the eyes of others. She's been conditioned to measure herself by reflections in mirrors, in comments, in passing glances, but never through her own still grounded sense of self. And your role, if you truly love her, is not to scold her for caring what others think. It's not to shame her sensitivity. It's to live so firmly and quietly in your own truth that she begins slowly, subtly, to find the courage to do the same, because nothing speaks louder than quiet confidence. Not arrogance, not loud declarations, but that calm, unwavering certainty that Marcus Aurelius spoke of, a life judged by your own soul, not by shadows on the wall. Miriam once asked me, in a soft, hesitant voice, "But what if people judge me anyway?" And I told her, gently but firmly, "They might, but they don't get to live your life." That moment became a lesson for both of us, because the truth is, we can never fully silence the world. The voices will always exist, but what we can do is decide which voices matter. And when a woman learns that from you, not because you told her, but because you live it every day with quiet strength, that's when her own strength finally begins to emerge from the shadows. Not loudly, not instantly, but powerfully. And that brings us to the final truth, one of the deepest, most tender of all her hidden vulnerabilities: the need to feel chosen, not just loved. Have you ever looked into her eyes and sensed that her question wasn't, "Do you love me?" but something softer, quieter, and far more fragile? "Do you truly choose me above all else?" Let me tell you a story that helped me understand the difference between being loved and being chosen. Her name was Achia. To everyone around us, we looked like a happy couple, laughing, holding hands, making plans. But behind closed doors, inside the quiet moments of our conversations, something more delicate was taking shape. One evening, we were sitting together under the warm, faded yellow light of her living room. It was a peaceful night, no distractions, no noise, just us. And then she looked at me with a kind of vulnerable innocence I'll never forget, and asked, "If there was another woman standing right here, prettier, funnier, more everything, would you still choose me?" Her voice wasn't jealous. It was scared, not of another woman, but of the possibility that I didn't love her for who she was. That I loved the idea of being with someone but not necessarily her. At first, I thought, isn't love enough? But that night, I remembered a deeper truth. One I found not in my own answers, but in the writings of Marcus Aurelius, and what he revealed helped me understand the quiet yearning behind her question, and why choosing her fully and intentionally meant more than just loving her. Let's go deeper. In the last moment, we explored what it means for a woman not just to be loved, but to be chosen. And that distinction, quiet as it may seem, changes everything. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Consider when you are offended at any man's fault. Turn to yourself and study your own failings." Those words hit me hard. They made me stop and reflect. Am I loving her from true devotion? Or from habit, comfort, or fear of being alone? He never needed constant reassurance. She didn't want sweet words just to fill the silence. What she truly needed was to feel seen. Not just the charming parts of her, but all of her. The laughter, the flaws, the small battles she fought silently each day. And after seeing all of that, to still say, with certainty, "It's you. I choose you." Because here's something most men never realize. A woman can feel your hesitation, even if your words sound perfect. She knows when your heart is still wandering, still comparing, still scanning the horizon for something newer, younger, or easier, even if you never say it aloud. And again, Marcus offered a line that quietly shifted my entire understanding of love. Let your love purify you, not poison you. To truly love her meant choosing her daily, not because she was perfect, not because she erased all my doubts, but because in her soul, I saw something I couldn't find anywhere else. So ask yourself, have you ever said "I love you" simply because you feared losing her? Or because it felt like the right thing to say in the moment? And have you ever, instead, really paused, looked her in the eyes, and chosen her not as an escape, not as a reaction, but as a conscious act of devotion? When he finally felt that, when she felt chosen rather than just kept, I saw something shift in her. The fear faded, the doubt quieted. Not because I gave her forever, no man can promise that, but because I gave her presence. I gave her intention. That is the quiet vulnerability many women carry. Not the desperate need to be loved, but the hidden ache to feel irreplaceable. Marcus teaches us, love born from strength, not from desperation, is what truly frees both people. So, let her see that your love isn't a habit. It isn't a routine or a backup plan. It's a decision made again and again, even when you could walk away, but choose not to. Because when she feels your love is rooted in clarity and strength, fear, that's when she finally feels safe enough to offer you her truest self. And that, my friend, that isn't just love. It's devotion. And it's rarer than most men will ever understand. Now, before you go, you might ask, why does any of this matter? Because if you can understand these silent, hidden weaknesses, not to exploit them, but to protect them, you become the kind of man a woman deeply respects, deeply trusts, and fully loves. Marcus Aurelius never wrote about modern relationships, but his wisdom still echoes through time. Master yourself first, then you can love her better. So if these words have stayed with you, take them with intention, not for manipulation, but for mastery. To become a man of quiet strength in a world that often rewards loud weakness. And with that said, thank you for watching, and until next time, stay steady, stay grounded, and always choose with purpose.